All right, so I'm going to use a microphone as much as I don't like to, but that way our live stream can pick it up. Welcome to our parent information meeting. My name is Kelly Trudeau. I am the K-12 charter administrator. And then you're going to have an opportunity to also hear from our other administrators as well as our school counselors today. We live in a unique time in that there are lots of choices in education. And this is both exciting but also very challenging because it means that you as parents have to do your due diligence and make sure that you figure out which learning environment is going to work best for your child. And in some families, that might mean different learning environments for each of your children because they might all be unique. If they're anything like my two kids, they're nothing alike. I wanted to describe charter schools in general because most charter schools in Idaho were founded by parents who were looking for a specific focus for their own children. And so you might also have heard of, like in West Ada in particular, there's quite a few charter schools that are actually part of the school district that would really more appropriately be named magnet schools because they have a focus, but they weren't started by a group of parents. So Compass was started by a group of parents looking for a specific focus, primarily a focus of culture, a positive, safe culture, as well as rigorous academics. In Idaho, charter schools are typically authorized by the Idaho Public Charter School Commission. And what that means is it means that we are our own districts. So Compass, for example, even though we reside in Meridian, we are not part of the West Ada School District. So we report directly to the state. We are our own district. Up until just about this year, there were no for-profit charter schools in Idaho, but recently, this year, there was a charter school approved as considered a charter management organization for profit, was approved in Idaho. So we now have one of those. There are some states that have lots and lots of those, but Idaho just approved our first charter, or CMOs is what they call them. So Compass's focus, as I already mentioned, is on a strong culture and rigorous academics. And this can be construed from our mission statement, which reads that Compass Public Charter School's mission is to provide a safe and challenging learning community that prepares students for lifelong excellence through exceptional academics, character development, and the ability to define and defend a personal worldview. In order to assist students in developing a healthy worldview and to prepare them for the privileges and responsibilities of American citizenship, Compass teaches moral and ethical standards aligned with traditional American values, the goals of our founding fathers, and the United States Constitution. You're going to hear more from Mr. Strickler about our rigor of academics and culture, but I want to point out that while Compass is a great school, that does not mean that we are the right school for every single student. So I've already kind of talked a little bit about that. But it is important that parents, like I said, figure out what is a good fit for their student. We do hold students to high expectations, both academically and behaviorally. If your student's not motivated in their current school, they don't like school, they are having behavior issues in their current school, moving them to Compass is not going to fix that. We're not in the business of fixing kids. The best fit for Compass are kids who are willing to work hard, that like school, that respect authority. Those are kids that are going to be super successful. And at the secondary level, we do recommend that you give their students, you kind of help your own child come to the decision about coming to Compass. So in other words, forcing a secondary student, it's hard. At the middle school age, if they're, they have friends and those kind of things, and forcing them to be at a school they don't want to be at almost never works. So working with them, we understand they're still kids and they need adult guidance, but kind of working with them on what Compass is all about and helping them come to that conclusion and come to that choice is probably the best thing for them, rather than saying this is where you're going to go or what you're going to do. Because unfortunately, kids, as much as we as adults think we have control, we don't have as much control as we think we do, and Mrs. Luke is going to talk about that. It's called Love and Logic. We're going to find out about our actual amount of control that we have. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Cordero.
I have my own mic. Okay. I'll take mine off so you can hear me and I'm not muffled. Hi, my name is Greg Cordero, and I am the Vice Principal for Secondary. And, I think I'm getting a ring. I think it's you and you. For Secondary. And I'm actually going to be talking about, and you're going to see as each one of us come up and present, how everything is kind of embedded. And how everything kind of crosses over. Test 1, 2, okay. And we're all, it's all one machine working differently. Let me change mics. Test. Okay, one machine working for the same goal and going in the same direction, but somewhat independently. I'm going to be talking about one of our philosophies is we go by the Three-Legged Stool, and it's found on our website. And before I get any further, I actually want to show our website a little bit. And if you have your device, one of the things that some of our parents, they want to find, well, where is this, and where is this, and where is this? Most of the thing, everything that we're going to be talking about tonight is found on our website. And so I'm going to navigate here so you can actually see where it is, and then I'm just going to read off of my notes. But to find the Three-Legged Stool, it's under the parents, and it's under the families, Compass Families.
It's in the handbook.
Under the handbook. And if you scroll down and it says Student Handbook, Course Handbook, it's one of the links under the Student Handbook K-12. And the Three-Legged Stool is found on page 6. And so I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. And the Three-Legged Stool is compass is one leg, the parents are the next leg, and then the student is the third leg. And in order for the stool to be balanced and to be successful, all three legs have to be working at the same time and pulling their weight and doing their part. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Compass's leg. So Compass provides the excellent academics. So our teachers, our administration, our school, our curriculum, we're going to provide you with those things, you and the students, so that they can be successful. We're going to provide a culture conducive to learning. So that means, like Mrs. Trudeau said earlier, Mr. Strickler is going to cover that, but we're going to make sure that the culture is going to be in such a way that your student can learn. We're also going to have support. We're going to support academic excellence, which is going to be talked about later as well. So this is still part of what we as Compass will do. We're going to make sure that your student is given the opportunity to learn and be successful. There's a parent section. The parent section is next. And your job is to help and come alongside us to help your child be successful. And you can't be in the classroom. However, we provide 2 digital platforms that allow you to at least have a peek or peer into the classroom. One is our Schoology, which is our digital classroom, where you see all of the assignments, you see the due dates, you see all the little pieces. You don't see lectures necessarily, but you can see PowerPoints and some things that the students have learned that day or will be learning. And so that's the before the grades are in. Then Power School is after the grades are in. Now you can see if the student, how well they did on any specific assignment that's been recorded. So that's one of your pieces to the leg to help the student be successful. And many times parents struggle navigating through our digital platform. We have a great IT department that can help you. You just have to go on into our website and find the IT department, and they can help you navigate or help you in anything that you may be struggling with. Our teachers communicate quite frequently and with whatever it is, and they can guide you into the direction or in the area you need to go on, whether it's the website or on their Schoology page, to help you as a parent be successful so you can support the student. Knowing due dates is a huge thing, so then you can at least, you don't have to know what happens in the assignment itself, but knowing when things are due or when things are coming up is a great help to the student, to help them, to encourage them to get their assignments completed. The final piece of the three-legged stool is the student's responsibility. The student is responsible to learn. We provide the materials, we provide the excellent teaching, we provide the safe environment, we provide the culture for learning. The student actually has to do the work. The student has to listen in class, take notes in class, follow the directions of the instructor. Then they have to make sure that they are going online and doing whatever their assignment is, whether it's in a packet or for elementary or for secondary. It's following the guidelines that are presented by the teacher. They're the ones that have to study. They're the ones that have to do their best and put forth the same effort. If any one of these legs is not doing their part, then there's going to be a problem, or there could be an issue or a situation with the students learning and the success of the student. Does that make sense? And I believe, one of the other things that I do want to talk to you about as far as the students part of the leg is the communication with the teachers. We are huge on students advocating for themselves, speaking up for themselves. So if there is a time where a student doesn't understand something, then they need to go, instead of going all day not knowing something and then going home and not being able to articulate, they can ask the teacher. Let's say, I know that sometimes students, and I have 4 students myself here at Compass, and sometimes my students, my kids, they struggle approaching a teacher because they're the adult, or they might be scary, or whatever it is, nervous, so they don't do it. So what I tell my boys to do, and I've done this for years, is when they come home and they don't understand something or they're confused, I tell them to email the teacher and CC me as the parent. So sometimes I even help them write the email if they don't know what to say. So I get the information from my kids and I say, okay, let's write the email, send it to the teacher, CC me as a parent. Then the teacher, 9 times out of 10, will just hit the reply all and reply to you as well as the student. So now you're in the conversation. Even if you kind of helped guide the conversation to the teacher, the appearance is the student is advocating for themselves. Then hopefully at that level it gets resolved and there's no confusion. The next step, if there's still confusion on your part or your student's part, then as a parent, you can advocate now and come alongside your student and email the teacher as well to try and get this resolved. And that's kind of the steps. There are times where it does get to the administration, but those are the steps we would take, is helping our students not only just learning, but helping them to have a voice and speak for themselves if they're confused or concerned about a situation. Make sense? And I think that's all I have, and so I will pass it back to Mrs. Trudeau.
Or if you are not who's next.
You are.
It is, yeah. I can do it if you want me to. It's standard term.
Oh, I will have you.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Scott Strickler, and I'm the elementary vice principal, and I get the chance to talk to you about culture and academics. We call these two things put together the pie of the Compass model. And the reason that we use that analogy is because you can't come to Compass for only half the pie. Those two things are foundational, and they work hand in hand with each other, and that's why I'm starting off my speech in the same way that I'm going to end it. You can't come to Compass for only one of those things because they're dependent upon each other. Let me elaborate a little bit about academics. I think the best word to describe our academics here at Compass would be rigorous, but that could mean so many different things, especially before you have kids here at Compass. So rigorous academics could mean content. I've heard people say, and this isn't exactly true, but I've heard people say that Compass teaches a year ahead. Well, it's not exactly like we grab a textbook curriculum and just teach 7th grade to 6th graders and 3rd grade to 2nd graders, but it is advanced compared to what you might see in your traditional public school district. It could be rigorous with the workload. You could expect some at-home work for your child, kindergarten through 12th grade. It's manageable if your kids are willing to work hard and stay on top of it, and you check in with them, but there is some at-home work. And it's also rigorous with something that we call pacing. And pacing can mean a couple of different things, but for a lot of grades it means the speed at which the classroom just moves. So when students come in for maybe an hour and 15 minutes in between a couple of breaks, they're going to get a lot more done in a Compass classroom than they would in your traditional setting. And that tires kids out. They should be tired by the end of the day. And the other thing is, it'll feel a little bit intimidating, especially if you have a kid coming in second or third or sixth grade. It's just different. But pacing is another way that our academics are rigorous. With culture, you heard Mrs. Trudeau talk about our mission statement, and the line that I'd like for you to think about is the part that talks about preparing students for lifelong excellence. We develop good character with the culture part of the Compass model, and we also try to develop lifelong work habits that are going to benefit the student for lifelong success. So with work habits, our teachers are very, very firm, and they hold students accountable, but they're not rigid. That doesn't mean that they're mean. They will have students meet due dates, and if they don't, then they will ask them, what happened, and if they can make up that work, and they hold them accountable. But that really is just because they like your kids, they like students, and they like teaching, and they want to see the kids be successful. Attendance and tardies. We want kids here. We want them here 100% of the time, or as close to it as possible. We understand that stuff happens. But we do need kids here, because if they're not here, they're just not learning, and it's not the same if they're, trying to catch up or make up work at home. Another part of that is tardies. For secondary, we want them here by 7:40, and for elementary, it's 8:50, but that means in their classroom, not in the parking lot hopping out of the car. So that's another good work habit that is really important to us, is getting your kids to school and getting them here on time. A couple of things that are different about Compass that would probably stand out as just being bold and different than maybe anything that you've ever come across before, is we talk about misplaced behaviors, things that aren't necessarily bad or malicious or mean-spirited or anything like that, they're just misplaced. So probably the most common one would be talking at the wrong time. So we tell students all the time there's nothing wrong with socializing. We even carve out time intentionally for the students to socialize, but we don't let them talk in the restrooms. We don't let them talk in the halls, because we're moving from point A to point B. And then we also try to have a really quiet cafeteria in here, and we have 240 students eating. So if you get your kid in a Compass and they come home and they say something along those lines, it's just because we're teaching them misplaced behaviors. It's totally fine to cheer at a football game, but you wouldn't be yelling and screaming at a piano recital. So we talk about those misplaced behaviors, and that's part of our model as well. And then with character, we do a ton of conflict resolution, probably way more than you would ever see at any other school. And you also might get a phone call from the teacher or from one of the administrators for something that maybe might not be as big a deal if your kid was in one of the larger districts. That's not because we are trying to micromanage kids or be rigid or anything like that. We just like to take care of the small issues before they become big issues. We also make sure that there's no double standard. Everybody has to be a contributor of good character and not just a taker of everybody else's. I think the biggest takeaway for you today is, like I said, I'm going to end my speech the same way that I started it. Those are the two halves of the pie, culture and academics. If you have culture without the academic part and you're not on board with the academics, then your kid's going to be frustrated. It's going to be fast-paced, and it's not going to be a place for them. If you're on board with the academics and your kid's fine with that, but not on board with the culture, it's going to turn in some behavior issues that we need to address. So Compass is a great school. I've got my own 2 kids here, but we have plenty of staff members who love it here and choose not to put their own kids in here. The whole purpose of school choice, including Compass, is to make sure that you find the right fit for your kid. And as you're considering Compass as one of your options, please take into consideration both halves of the pie, culture and academics. I think we have Mrs. Trudeau next with standards reference.
I just don't know how much we need to go. I should have asked at the beginning, how many have secondary kids, like 6th grade and above? How many are here for, okay. And then how many are here for K-5? Oh, more, okay. So I'll just touch on it really quick.
So also some of this, if you probably obviously don't know this, but like Mr. Cordero and I tend to work more with the secondary kids, and Mr. Strickler and Mrs. Luke work more with the elementary kids. So some of the information you just got, like for example, no talking in the bathrooms or in the hallways, that's true for elementary. That is not true for high school. So just so there is a little bit of differences. Same with Mr. Carter was talking about Schoology, and you get online and you look at Schoology and a peek in the classroom. That is true for 6th through 12th grade, not true for K through 5th. So there are some nuances here that we weren't being super clear on. But I think just as you're looking at Compass, I'm hoping most parents who are looking at Compass, even if you're coming in at the elementary level, hopefully you're considering it all the way through. It's a K-12 program, and honestly, the things that we start in the elementary are building upon each other, and your kid is going to be a stronger, more academic student the longer they stay. And Mrs. Nagy is going to talk a little bit about dual credit in our high school, and our amazing high school program for that. And if you're coming in at any grade level, you probably would want to stay for that. At least I know my kids did. So, but I'm just going to touch on standard reference grading. I think in the West Ada School District, most of you are doing standards grading anyway. Is that true with West Ada? I think most schools. I don't know about high schools yet. I think they transitioned to that, and then there was some backlash, and they maybe withdrew that. So basically, we use the Common Core standards to evaluate where your student is academically. We're looking for mastery, and so we grade on a scale of 0 to 4. And so your student 4 is considered above mastery, like that they are not only have they mastered this material, that they're applying it, they could probably teach it to somebody else. A 3 being they've mastered this material. They understand the standard, this particular standard. A 2 means they're almost there. They might need some help still. 1, even with help, not necessarily there. And then 0, they can't do it at all. Okay. I mean, 9 out of 10 of our kids are at the between the 2 and the 4. They're in that range. And we keep our grades at the number score, if you will, the 0 to 4, all the way through 8th grade. So K through 8th grade, you're going to see a number on your report card. Now at the high school level, we do convert those to letter grades, your traditional A, B, C, D, and F. And that's only because colleges are still, although even colleges are starting to move away from it, and we are partners with CWI, so we are seeing this movement happening at the college level. But even colleges are starting to move to that. We still have a lot of colleges that are looking for GPAs. And so we do convert the 1, 2, 3, 4 to a letter grade at the end of a grading period, which we grade by semesters. So that way that they have a GPA to transfer in high school. So that's all I'm going to say about standard reference grading. However, if you back out to that same page back up to the Compass, if you go to Compass Parents, or go to Parents and the Compass Families, on this page you'll also find our standard reference grading handbook is on here as well. All right, Mrs. Luber, you next? No. Athletics.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you really quick about our athletic program for middle school and high school, and actually we are doing some things in our elementary program as well. And we do have an athletics director here who is Jake Trudeau, and he's our middle school and high school athletic director. We offer some of the sports, and the sports that we don't offer, if your child is interested in, like for example, baseball, we don't offer baseball, but if they're interested in baseball, all they have to do is get a little something from our athletic director saying that we don't offer it, and then they can go to a different school and play for that particular school. We have some that play football, baseball, what else? Some of the wrestling. So they do we have a variety, tennis. So it's like, so they can still do all the sports in their neighborhood schools. We just need to not provide it here. And I'm going to tell you the ones that we do have. We offer for middle school and high school, we offer cross country, girls volleyball, girls and boys basketball, and we have a co-ed golf. So those are the sports that we offer here at Compass. Now we've done some things in the past for our elementary students to kind of get our elementary on board, to jump into the sports and just be a part of our program for middle school and high school. And I know that this year we're offering AAU. It's kind of like an AAU basketball for girls. for 4th and 5th, I believe, 5th grade. 5th through 8th, thank you. And we've done one for 6th grade for boys, so we've done a variety of things. We've done some intramurals for our 3rd through 5th before. So our athletic program and some of the ones that run our camps, it all depends on the individuals that we have. And you as parents would get communication and plenty of time to be able to sign up and decide if that's something that you want. We started our golf for middle school last year. We don't play necessarily other teams because not other schools offer middle school golf, but we do take them to the golf, to the range, and they hit balls, they have coaches, and they kind of prepare themselves for our high school golf team. We belong to 2A. We used to be 1A, and now we bumped up to the 2A league. So we play all over the place, it seems like. And we have a great gym that we just finished out, and we got last year. We've got some amazing stuff, we've got some amazing coaches, and so if you have any questions, you can contact Mr. Trudeau, who is our athletic director, and we also have an athletic page under students, under athletics. If they ever get into it, the schedule's on here. It talks about some sponsorship. It also has all of our coaches and for middle school and high school. So if you needed to contact anyone. And I believe that's it. Oh, one thing we also do is we haven't really had it this year because of the situation we're in with COVID, is band. Band is also, we've had our band teacher who has done performances and they take the kids kind of like a sport. We sign them up just like we do volleyball and football, where you sign up for band and then they perform as well. Okay? All right, this is Mrs. Nagy.
Hello, I'm Amanda Nagy. I'm the college and career counselor at the high school. So I just wanted to give you a little information about our dual credit program. I know a lot of you aren't there yet, but kind of what to look forward to. So we've been partnered with College of Western Idaho since they started. So they started their dual credit program, so about 9-10 years. And we are now offering, I'd count all of them up, we have 36 courses that are dual credit. 18 of them are core courses, 18 are elective. We have 12 teachers that are dual credit instructors, which means that they are also employees at College of Western Idaho. So they have to meet the criteria of being able to teach at CWI as well. So we have some really experienced professional staff in our high school. And just our program starts in 9th grade, so students can start taking dual credit in 9th grade. We have a few core classes and electives, just kind of dip their toe into it, get a feel for what the expectations are. And then by the time they're in 11th grade, all their core classes are college classes. So we like to think that we're preparing them for college in their 9th and 10th grade program. So 11th and 12th grade, all their core classes are dual credit. So they're also able to go over to College of Western Idaho and take classes there. So we have some students doing that. They can take classes online. We have a few that are getting their associate's degree, so they work with College of Western Idaho to do that. So a lot of options for kids in high school.
Hello, my name is Susan Luke, and I am the elementary principal for grades K-5. But I'm going to talk to you for a minute today about discipline as it applies to K-12. There's some things that we do here at Compass that we call threads, and those threads are things that we try to bring all the way from kindergarten up through 12th grade, so that we have a unifying experience as K-12 as well as individual elementary, middle, and high school. So one of our threads is our discipline philosophy, and I'll explain a little bit to you about that. If you want to follow along on our website, you would need to go to under parents, where we are right here, will be 4 sports, go into families, parents, and you can do this one. And then the K-12 student handbook, and you'll want to look at pages 14 through 20 is where I take, where the discipline is kind of covered. And I have already crossed off some of my comments because either Mr. Strickler already said them or Mrs. Trudeau. So that goes to show you what a great job we do of reading one another's minds. It's pretty fun. to work as a team of 4 that think so closely together. I'm going to read to you one statement out of the, thank you, Mrs. Trudeau, one statement out of the K-12 handbook. The role of discipline at Compass is to create an environment conducive to learning. It is to provide an atmosphere of civility in which due respect will be given to teachers and to individual students, as well as to all institutional and private property, so that all members of the school community will be allowed to pursue learning without distraction. So that's a big mouthful, but basically what that's saying is we want everybody to be able to come to Compass to do their learning. Teachers need to be able to teach, and other students need to be able to learn. And so if you're doing something that's causing a problem for one of those areas, then that's what we would consider a misplaced behavior or a behavior issue. It goes on to say, in addition, discipline at Compass ought always to uphold the essential qualities established in the school's philosophy. So hopefully you've all been to the Compass School philosophy, because that's going to be the backbone of what we do here at Compass, and make sure that that's something that you can get behind and support. The school recognizes that requiring good conduct in school promotes students' education on campus, encourages good behavior off campus, and helps prepare students for good citizenship in adulthood. So we often talk to students even as young as kindergarten, but certainly also in the high school, about how they're setting habits for their adult life and what these opportunities to learn from mistakes that you might make in behavior and decisions that you're going to make during your kid years, during your school years, to help set you up for a better experience as a successful adult. This means that one of the unique things that you'll find at Compass is that we are going to address what we call little things. So there are lots of misplaced behaviors that don't often get addressed in a traditional public school. And I can tell you some of the reasons why is because it takes a lot of work on the part of teachers and administrators to address the little things. And so for a lot of schools, these little things that go maybe not unnoticed, but sometimes it's not dealt with, they usually end up going into bigger things. So our philosophy here is if we can take care of the little things and address the little things and help students to get on board with doing what they're supposed to be doing, even when the misplaced behaviors or the misbehaviors seem little, that prevents us from getting into the real serious things. So if your student comes home and says that they got in trouble because they were turned around in line, that's your opportunity to say, wow, what were you supposed to be doing? Or what do you think you're going to do next time so that doesn't happen again? Which brings me to this love and logic philosophy, and this is, the love and logic philosophy is explained a little bit in our handbook, but there's lots of really good literature out there if you're super interested in love and logic. It is empowering, I can tell you, as a parent. It's empowering as a spouse. My husband hates it. I have 4 kids that are already grown, and my youngest one is in college, and he will still look at me and say, Mom, I know what you're doing, when I talk to him in a love and logic sort of way. But it basically empowers students to make decisions and then have to live with their consequences. And one of the really fun things to do as a parent is when you are giving your student an opportunity to live and learn from their decision when you know it's not going to be life impacting. So what are you going to wear to school? Or are you going to have hot lunch or cold lunch? Or are you going to pack your backpack and take it to school? Or are you going to live with the consequences because it's not my job to pack it for you? Those kinds of things, so that your student is learning to be empowered, feel empowered, and be able to do what we're expecting them to do. In summary, love and logic, the love and logic rule is that students can do whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't cause a problem for you, me, or anyone else, and they'll be able to recite that to you because we talk about it every day. And anyone at school means teachers, other students, parents, cafe workers, bus drivers, anybody that you can imagine that's here at school with them. One of the things that Mrs. Trudeau alluded to was the fact that we don't have control like we wish we did. And that's true, and parents know that that's true if we think about it too often. We just don't like to think about it because we like to feel like we can get our kids to do what we need them to do, when in fact we have very little control when they get big enough. And so our job is to figure out how to make them want to do what they should be doing anyway. And it's a challenging task. It's no different for us here at school. If your kids don't like to do homework at home, they probably don't like to do schoolwork at school. So we're a team on this, and that alludes back to what Mr. Cordero was talking about for the three-legged stool. But using that knowledge of love and logic, or the idea that I really can't control you, so I'm going to come together with you, and I'm going to try to empower you to do what you know you should do, because if you don't, it's going to just be worse for you. So one really quick example that I'm going to give, we do this a little bit at the secondary. It's a little harder to fool kids at the secondary because they're older and more experienced. But at the younger grades in the elementary, we do something called 40 cards. We tell stories, and we do a lot of this a lot of the time. We like to interrupt ourselves as teachers and administrators and tell a story. And as we're interrupting ourselves, we tell stories that are going to be meaningful to children so that they know that we're real people too, and that we know the kinds of experiences that they're going through, because we've been through some of those too. But one example that I used to use when I was in the classroom, when I was trying to convince kids that the best time for them to use the restroom was when we went on a restroom break, instead of asking to leave class so that they didn't miss out on what we were doing in classroom. So I told a story that's actually true. I was the oldest of 8 children. That's what I blame all my inadequacies on. And when we were headed across country on a trip one time, my dad asked everybody to get out and go to the restroom when we were stopped for gas. Maybe you've done the same thing. And I decided I was too good for that, I didn't need to go. So I told the kids that I just stayed in the car and read. And about 10 minutes later, I started to get really nervous because I knew that I hadn't made a very good choice. And I was too scared to tell my dad, ask him if we could stop. And so I say to the kids, do you know what I did? And they all look at me. I said, I asked my mom. And then I said, and then she told my dad. And so then I had to deal with mom and dad asking me why I hadn't gone when I was supposed to go with everybody else. So then for the whole rest of the year, all I had to say to my students was, this is kind of like the rest stop. If you need to go to the bathroom, now's a good time. And that was all I had to say, because they knew the story behind it. And it was kind of a fun experience rather than getting after them for not going to the bathroom. But that's a little bit about love and logic and how you can work with it and have a lot of fun with it, and allow kids, members of your family, to feel empowered. But that's one of the things that we do here at Compass that's a little bit different. One of the other things that we do is we also relate our discipline to growth mindset. There's a lot of literature out there about growth mindset, but basically, in summary, it's the belief that an individual's most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. So if you're a parent that supports a growth mindset, then you're going to understand that caring adults, either at school or outside of school, we're going to allow students to make mistakes and then learn from those mistakes. So when Compass shares with you an opportunity for your students to learn from his or her choice, this is a great chance, an excellent chance for you to support your student in learning through dedication and through hard work and learning how to be responsible. Mr. Strickler alluded to the fact that we've been unique and bold in a couple of different ways, and some of those he talked about as far as discipline goes. I would propose to you that Compass is a place where students can feel empowered to do the things that they already know that they should be doing, and that we can come alongside you on this three-legged stool and empower you as parents while you support us as educators in the school building to help get kids to be the very best that they can be.
I don't know who's next. Did you want to clap for me?
Hi there, I'm Patricia Barnes. I am one of our counselors that I work with grades 7 through 12. But the other thing I get to do is manage our Sources of Strength program. And has anyone heard of Sources of Strength in here? It's been on the news a little bit. It's managed we're under the Idaho Lives Project. The Sources of Strength is just growing across Idaho and across the nation. It's a national program. If you ask our kids about it, I looked around and realized we don't have a wheel in here. We need to get one. But this little wheel on my lanyard here has 8 different sections, and each section represents a different part of our lives that we can build up, whether it's positive friends, or working with our family, or healthy activities, physical, mental health. We really use Sources to support our students' mental health. But we do it through a lot of fun activities. On Valentine's Day, the kids brought in pictures of their pets. We called it Positive Pets, P-A-W, instead of Positive Friends. They loved seeing each other's pets, and that's a support for everybody that has pets. They know that that is a good support for us. If you ask Sources of Strength what Sources of Strength is, technically it's an upstream suicide prevention program. But because we do all the other things, we don't really have to talk about the suicide part. It also prevents drug abuse, it supports your mental health, and builds resiliency. And the upstream part is, they told this story about Fable. There's a village, and the village notices that kids keep falling in the river and floating by, and they need to do something about it. So they put their heads together, and they figure out nets, and they figure out lifeguards, and they figure out everything they can do to save these kids that are floating by in the river. Until somebody finally says, hey, why don't we go upstream and figure out where they're falling in the river and do something there so they don't have to fall in the river. So by building resiliency, by working with our program through fun activities, and this is the first year we started, Sources of Strength started a program in kindergarten. Well, it goes through 2 through 6, but we're doing it in kindergarten and all the way up because we do things advanced here at campus. But it looks different for different grade levels. You will hear about it from your kids. They might talk about the wheel, they might bring a sticker home with the wheel, but we want them, when they're suffering from something and they're struggling with something, then go to the wheel and what's going well for you? Is it your family support? Is that strong? Is your friend strong? What are you doing for healthy activities? Don't have anything? Well, what are 4 or 5 things you can do as a healthy activity? Is it drawing? Is it listening to music? Is it going for a walk? So we use the wheel to build up our strengths, to build up resiliency, and we use it to normalize the discussion of mental health. So with all of the rigor, and we have love and logic and mindset, it all ties together to support our students' mental health and to talk about that, and that is okay.
So, and I should add, so I printed the green on the little notes you got today because this week we are honoring our mentors. And so on the wheel that she was talking about, the SOS wheel, mentors are in the green pie, if you will. And so we are using kind of the St. Patrick's Day, we're saying, lucky for mentors this week. So we're honoring our mentors. But as Mrs. Barnes talked about, they do a lot of fun activities. I would say that the other thing that SOS really does is just kind of build community. And like right now, a bunch of her peer leaders have been helping her for the last couple of weeks. They're putting together big packets to go home for spring break, for middle school kids, right, for spring break too. They have all sorts of games and activities that they can do over spring break with family. And then if they participate in several of the activities and report back to that, they actually can enter to win a prize. So there's always something along those lines going on at Compass, and we are excited that we have been able to this year bring it down all the way to the elementary program. So I think that's really important.
So just to kind of conclude, I know that this meeting was really more of a kind of the big picture view of Compass. And we do have some things coming up that will give more kind of the minutia, the details, if you will. Like we have an open house coming up in August. That's August 12th during the day where kids and families can meet the teachers. And then in September, we typically have what we call a family community engagement night, where we actually host like several different workshops to give more details about Schoology, about Power School. At the elementary level, they use Google Classroom, and we talk a little bit more in detail about Love and Logic and helping your students solve their own problems through advocacy. And so you get a lot more details in those kinds of sessions that we will hold later on as we get closer to the beginning of the school year. And I put this on your note, but just some important dates. So we've got, our school starts a little bit earlier than the traditional public schools. We start August 16th, and that's because we do follow kind of our own year-round calendar, modified year-round calendar. We love it because we get breaks right at the right time. As Mr. Strickler alluded to, your kids should come home really tired. We do work with them really hard. We have fewer days in our school year, but we do work really hard. There is no downtime at Compass, really. I mean, other than lunch and maybe a couple of breaks in the day. And so we have an October break. We have a 2-week Christmas break. We have the entire week of Thanksgiving off. We have a February break. We have a 2-week spring break. So we do take a lot of breaks throughout the year, which helps to just rejuvenate both the students and the teachers. Those are all very intentional in our programming, and feel like they're important to our program. So with that, any questions? And we may not be able to get to the really detailed stuff, but any real specific questions? You guys have a big decision you're trying to make. So anything that we didn't cover that we left off?
The schedule for next year looks like there might be rotating days.
So we do have, actually thank you for bringing that up, because we actually do have a proposed calendar amendment to our school board. And so that's actually going to be looked at in April at the April board meeting, and that's April 8th. So we're actually, right now, what we've been following is an early release day on Mondays. We're actually proposing not to do an early release day next year, but instead to have one remote learning day per month. So that means that once a month there would be one day off in the middle of the week, but just 1 week a month that they would be learning from home. So it wouldn't be necessarily a day off. They would still be expected to do some things on their programs at home. But we would do that in place of the early release day. So you guys are welcome to attend our board meetings. They're open meetings. So far they've been still Zoom meetings, so you would have to go to our website to get that Zoom link.
Could you paint us a picture, if we were to walk into a classroom, specifically elementary, what would we see, what would we hear, what would that picture be?
Do either of you want to, I mean, I could probably address that, but you go for it. Do you? Okay. So I think you would see a busy classroom. So, and the other thing that's always amazing to me in elementary when you walk in, especially, after week 1. So just know that we do at the first week of school, K-12, another thread, if you will, is we do what we call expectation training. At the secondary level, we call it discovering excellence, because that sounds a little better for older kids. But we very intentionally train them about what's expected in the first week of school, from details of where to go turn in my paper in a classroom. So the thing that's amazing in 2nd grade or 3rd grade or all those elementary classes is if you walk in week 2 or 3 or 4, you're going to see the kids getting up and doing and knowing exactly what to do without the teacher saying a word. And it's pretty incredible, actually. You also, if you ever watch them do Shirley English, and one of these days we're going to get some of these videos on our website, but that's just that's something that we do. It's just a little itty bitty piece of our curriculum, but listening and watching little elementary kids know what verbs, nouns, pronouns, adjectives, all of those things is incredible. Stuff that I probably still don't know.
Special needs, do you do IEPs, do you have classes for special needs? How about-
So we do have, in fact, I didn't get to introduce her, but Alyssa Higgins, who's in here, is our special education director. So yes, we do have students who are on individual education plans, on 504 plans. We follow an inclusion model, so we do not have classes for specific classes for students. So typically, when an IEP comes in, a student comes in on an IEP, we do have to modify that to fit our program. But we do serve those students. Depending on the student, and what their needs and services are, then we do have paraprofessionals. There's not necessarily a one-on-one paraprofessional. A lot of times, students in a certain grade level might be grouped in a classroom so that a paraprofessional can work with several of them and support them. Typically, you're going to see that in like English and math. Those are the two primary areas that students need support. They may not necessarily get it in all of their classes. Do you want to add anything to that, Ms. Higgins?
That's pretty spot on, but I can answer questions at the end if you have specifics.
Thank you. Other questions?
Electives for 7th grade next year, is there a place on the website or something?
So our electives tend to change on a pretty regular basis, so kind of depending on age. So no, I don't have them on the website. When we do registration, the students will have an opportunity to make a choice during registration. At the middle school level, 6th and 7th is still fairly basic. So like band is a choice, and then usually it's the wheel is a choice. And the wheel is typically rotating through each quarter to a different course. So for example, this year we've got art, we've got a STEM. Can you think of anything else? Music. Well, we did music in place of band this year, so music will come out of the wheel next year. Will hopefully, right? This COVID thing is gone. That's in 8th grade. I think in 7th grade. Robotics is 8th grade. So we have anyway, I don't know them even off the top of my head, but they will get an opportunity to rotate through several. The idea behind our middle school electives is we're trying to give the kids a little taste of all of the electives at the high school level, so that when they get to high school and they get to choose, then they like, oh, I did that, in 8th grade I did that foods class, and so I might want to take, nutrition. We have a CTE program, so CTE stands for Career Technical Education. We've got a couple of different CTE programs. So we've got a nutrition program, foods and nutrition, which they can earn a food handler's license for that. We've got a broadcasting CTE. So those are different things that they can take, and they get a little taste of them in the middle school. Other questions?
So my daughter will be in kindergarten, and so mine are all going to be kindergarten questions, but is there PE or any athletic stuff that they do daily?
So kindergarten does get PE. It's one of the few electives they get. They also get Spanish and music.
And science.
Oh, they get Spanish. We do all sorts of stuff for kindergartners.
And kindergarten's full time,
And kindergarten is full day.
right? So
Yes.
and he starts at 8:50,
Yep, still starts at 8:50 and they're done at 3:30.
and every day, because you guys are petitioning for not having the early release for the Mondays, right?
Correct.
Same with kindergarten, I assume.
Correct.
So then every day, Monday through Friday, 8:50.
Yes.
Okay. How much do they use, in kindergarten? Is there any technology? Will they be on?
So they actually have computers, and they will also use iPads in their classroom. They will still have probably even some work. Mrs. Hills, one of our kindergarten teachers. Do they do homework that's also for online?
Not this year, we might decide to add back in next year, but as of now, it's just having it and reading everything.
It's not a plethora of digital work though. We
Okay.
do most of our work in kindergarten is direct instruction, hands-on, but we do train them to do digital work so that they can learn that little bit by little bit.
Yeah.
And if we are doing the remote, if that passes through our board to do the remote learning day, so they may get to do some Khan Academy, which I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Khan Academy, but we do use that a lot for math homework and things.
And for recess and, do they get recess and lunches?
No,
And
we
is it?
give none of our kids recess.
We just paid like, I don't know, $200,000 for this structure. And we've got another one out there.
Well, the only reason I asked that was because I was like concerned with the no socializing. So like when they come to lunch, like they can't really talk to each other, or like do they get time?
They
where
can talk, they
go
just are
outside?
not, but if they're talking, we've just discovered if they're talking a lot, then, well, besides food coming out of their mouth and manners, because you know, you don't talk with your mouth full, they just don't get done in time, especially kindergarten. Like, one of the challenges of kindergarten lunch is learning that you can't just, I mean, I'm making some assumptions here, just remembering my own children when they were kindergartners. Granted, I have a 27 and 23-year-old now, but they, you know, would sit and eat while they're watching a TV show. And so, you know, it could be an hour long to take in every one little bite at a time. So when they come to the lunchroom and they realize that they have basically 15 minutes to eat, if they want 15 minutes outside. I mean, they have 30 minutes, but if you want time to eat and play, you have to actually eat and do it fairly quickly without choking.
Kindergarten gets a morning recess, a lunch recess, an afternoon recess, and PE every day. There's a lot of time. And we tell the kids in elementary, it's kind of like how your mom and dad expect you to hurry through breakfast. So if you guys expect your kids to hurry through breakfast so you can get to where you need to go, that's kind of what we have to do at lunch too. Which is why we can't sit and visit like we're at Olive Garden. It's not the same.
How much earlier before 8:50 can they get dropped off before school?
8:30. And we do provide breakfast as well here at Compass, so you can get breakfast as well for, you know, if that is a challenge, to have them up in time and eat as well at home. It's an option. Did you have a question back here?
So for the PAM, if you got is that PAM for the recess and one time the same time that older people?
No, so no. We don't, yeah, we try to keep the same age kids on the playground as much as possible. Like when there is a crossover, it's gonna be this like 2 grades. So it might be like 3rd and 4th together, or 5th and 6th together. 7th and 8th have a little bit of time together. But we also are expanding our playground. So right now, we did actually buy the 5 acres next to us. There's a parking lot that's being added, and then there's more green space being added. So right now we are a little cramped in our playground area, but we are expanding so that if we end up having to have older kids out at the same time, they would be kind of pushed over to the other side a little further away. This playground we've explained it, we just put this one in, is designated in it for the elementary, so for K-5. So our older kids, they can use it, but it's been explained to them that if the younger grade level comes out, then you are moving to the other side, to the other playground. And so they know that the elementary kids have priority at this playground. Okay, any other questions? Really? That's awesome. All right, well, we did put some contact information also on that little sheet. And so if you have some general questions, you can certainly go there. If you have questions more specific to the lottery or to registration, that information is on there. And then would really just encourage you to kind of go through the materials that are listed at the top of that to review, and that will probably answer a lot of your questions that you may have. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Can I ask you a quick question? For the lottery results, one of my child didn't receive it. So, you know who this guy? So he's on waiting list 1, and she got accepted.
Okay. So, and I was going to answer from the administrators. student in, it makes the other one go over the line faster. And
So I think
the
the
priority now is but they can give them focus on
daughter,
to take it
It's a bad mic.
we didn't receive the result for her, but we did receive,
So that's the
yeah, one of them is missing.
okay.